a little experience of shooting the things, and they had, apparently the reason they were practicing, I suppose. Anyway, we wound up, got that all straightened up. We wound up down in, back in Zamboanga down in Mindanao again. I was there in June, late June of 44. I was there when the war ended. And we shipped out of there we were there about 6 months. 23rd December we left there. And we were all over those islands, just bobbing around, stopping here, stopping there. Left there on an LCI. Now that's a real adventure, riding one of those cutters. Have you ever seen an LCI? No.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Anyway.
Flat bottom thing with a...
It bobbed like a cork.
Yeah.
Got about 3 or 4 feet of water. And we hit a storm always on that. It got a little tough. But we made it through that, on up into the Philippines. I think we hit Port-au-Princess on Palawan and Iloilo City on Panay. I think that's where we spent Christmas Eve there and went uptown. They let us off the ship and we went uptown and went to a Christmas party. They had just a little building built up there, and they had girls or waitresses in there, and they went in there. A certain girl was your waitress, and she was like your date for the night, for the evening. Anyway, had a lot of fun with that. Something to do. We wound up back on Samar again by the time we got it all settled. Kind of lived it up a little bit up there. Oh, by that time, of course, there's guys are all waiting to come home. We got on Samar, and it was there about a week or so. The guys had no more points than I had, done less points than I had, were coming home. They were getting on draft, and I couldn't get on draft. I got to aggravate the personnel office, and I guess they got aggravated with me. And first thing you know, I'm on the draft, going up to Subic Bay. Was up there, I landed in there. We went out and mustered in the next morning. Officer mustered us in, and we're standing there, he looked at me, number of points, he said, "What are you doing up here?" I said, "I've been trying to get home." So, he said, "Well, we're not going to sign you any work detail. You won't be here long enough." I was there about 10 days, but didn't have to do anything. Just fiddle around. But they had a good place up there. They had because the war was over then, and they had a pretty nice setup. You go in, they had a beer garden. You could go in the evening. You couldn't take any beer out, but you could drink all the beer you wanted while you were in there. 1 or 2 is enough for me anyway. We'd go to movies. Or we'd buy some old black cigars, sit in a movie, an outdoor movie fixed up. Keep smoke rolling pretty good, keep mosquitoes away from me. Then eventually got on a draft to come home. We got on a ship called the USS Galloway. Well, we bobbed around. We'd been into Manila, but we didn't get off west. We stayed there a couple of days at Cavite, at a little naval base there. But we shipped up from there on over to Subic Bay, where we were supposed to go to, and got out of there and caught the Galloway and started home. And we had 19 days making the trip back. Stopped in Hawaii again on the way back. Had a poor devil on the ship with us. Got out of the top bunk. They didn't have very many people on it. He got clear up in a big old, about 6 bunks high, and come bailing out of there, and he hit a sea chest with his mouth. Middle of the night, broke all his front teeth out. Poor devil. I felt so sorry for him. They had a corpsman, they got in to treat him a little bit, get him cleaned up. He hunted him up another boat a little lower the next time. So we come back in a couple of days out of Frisco, we hit what they call the San Francisco Rough. It's some pretty rough water, about probably be 700 or 800 miles off of San Francisco. And I guess it's that way most of the time, they tell me it is. And we wound up getting through that, got back in, married in Frisco. I don't recall what day of the week was now, but anyway, it was kind of late in the day. Took us about a day to get unloaded before they finally unloaded us. It was a long afternoon. We get in there and they told us, guys, says, anybody wants to go on Liberty, go ahead and go on Liberty tonight. I didn't have any money. What I want to go to Liberty for? I want to get home. And I didn't go out, but a couple of guys out there, the older guys, and hadn't been in the Navy very long. They went out that night and dangled fed two old Jasper, didn't get to drinking a little bit, and they both married men with families. Here they come in, next morning woke up with 2 tattoos. They all both had tattoos. You took about a couple of sick guys when they saw that. Things like that you remember. We were there 3 or 4 days, and went through everything you had to do there. Got on the train and headed back east. Made it back in here, and I think it was 3 days, something like it. Come through a lot of places. We did get off in Denver, or had a layover in Denver. Was there for 4 or 5 hours. And came on through. That was about it. Of course, when I first went in, as a farm boy, I was in pretty good shape. Had chief petty officer in boot camp, but we kind of pulled a little goof one morning. They put us to run, and we ran about 3 hours. He had to run too, and he was on the inside. We started running about 8:30. About 11:30, we knocked off for lunch. I was in the 2nd platoon, the 6th row back. That meant there's about the biggest part of 100 guys ahead of me when I started out. Wound up and leading the whole pack. Old chief, he was running little circles in the inside. He said, my God, boy, what kind of shape are you in? I said, I'm an old farm boy, and I've been doing farm work all the time. I said, working all the time. We had a hay made for the year and all that kind of stuff, but then I left the biggest part of it. Legs were in good shape. I asked myself, I guess I'm about as good a shape as anybody in the outfit. He said, I think you got most of them beat pretty bad. More than half of them running yet, out of 140 men in the whole company. So, see, there was fun days or stuff like that. That was fun for me because I could run all day. But it didn't bother me, but everybody else was having some trouble with it. But then on the, see, we got into, give us 25 days, I think. Rehab leave, came home, pulled around a bunch of guys that didn't want to get home. The guys started calling, already gotten home ahead of me. We got up, was carrying on too much, the biggest part of that. Nighttime. I got home, day after I got home, I sowed the clover seed for Dad. I got home originally in March, and finally, I got back up to Great Lakes and started going through the process of getting discharged. Get up there and I got in the 24 hours of my discharge, and the guy called me in one morning when we reported in. Said, we don't have any records on you from boot camp until you shipped overseas. What's supposed to do? He said, we're going to give you a 5-day leave. At the end of 3 days, you call in and see whether we're going to extend your leave or have you come back. So, at the end of 3 days, I called in. Take another 5 days. So, we've got 5 days. I started to, and the next morning I get a phone call and say, come on back, we got your records. Got back there and got the same point again. Guy said, we still don't have 11 months year records. He started out a bunch of stuff. I said, I'll tell you where it's at. Well, we can't do that. we gotta have your records. I just reached over the desk and called him and pulled him up tight to the desk. I said, did you hear what I told you? He said, yeah. I said, you're either gonna print it in there so we can cut out this dang foolishness, or I'm gonna smash your nose all over your face. He said, okay, it's okay, you don't have to be so nasty about it. He filled her in. A couple of days later, I was out of there. I got discharged the 27th day of April of 1945. 46, yeah. Time gets away. But I had a lot of fun in the Navy. There's times when I thought they wasting their money having many guys doing so little bit, but that wasn't my business. My business to do what I was told to do. I tried to do it. I had a lot of fun at it. I don't regret it at all. If I'd manned up, I'd be glad to do it again, but I just don't think I can handle it like I could. That 78 years makes a difference. Anything else you need?
Well, I thought we'd, you talked about your experience basically with the running. Is there any other memorable experiences from your induction training?
Pardon?
Your boot camp. Is there any other memorable experiences?
Oh, these little things happen, but you forget about this. Man, that's been almost 60 years. That's been a lot of years. See, I graduated from high school young. I was only 16 years old to graduate. And of course, at 16 years old then, you couldn't get a job. You had to be a little older. And of course I could enlist I was old enough to enlist in the service, but I didn't do that. I just going to help Dad on the farm. So I had a whole bunch of brothers. Apparently there was, I was the first one to go, then my next younger brother, then my older brother in World War II, and in Korean War, I had two brothers in that. So the 5 out of the 6 of us spent some time in the military. But I didn't feel so bad about it. I thought I was having a good time, but some of my brothers didn't enjoy it quite so much. But they never quite as full of the old Nick as I've always been a pretty good physical specimen as far as strength, as far as durability, things to do things. I've never had much sickness. Worked 30 years in NCR, got laid off, wound up. I worked the farm market, and I worked at a carry out. Just anything, and I wound up, and I finally retired. I was up there at Quaker Heights, maintenance. But that's been 13 years this winter since I retired from there. So I'm beginning to get some years on me now.
Okay. I mean, do you have when you're in Texas?
Pardon?
When you were in Texas, you were working with destroyer escorts. You said they were building them.
Pardon?
When you were in Texas, they were building destroyer escorts. You said.
Yeah, they were building them around. We were putting them in commission.
Okay. What did you do?
What did I do? Put torpedoes on them, on the ships, and they came in. Torpedoes come in on the railroad. We were back in the docks, and we unloaded them there. And when the ship come in, they were assigned torpedoes, so you put torpedoes on them.
Okay.
On the ships. Did have, I don't remember what number the DE it was, but it got sunk over in the Philippine Islands. But it took a Jap aircraft carrier down with it. So felt like I did a little something there, you know. But there's torpedoes on that ship. Got it ready to go. So there are many things happen. You forget about it. You're talking about that kind of stuff and brings back things.
Okay. How big is a destroyer escort?
Destroyer escorts, I expect it's probably around the neighborhood of 200 feet long. It's it's smaller yet than the destroyer. Destroyer is a full size which goes to 300 feet. They're a pretty good size ship. Truthfully, I don't know, don't remember. But the escorts were considerably smaller. And they had The original ones had 3-inch 50s on, and late when what class was I think it seems to me it's the Mitchell class, come out and had 5-inch 38, a single 5-inch 38 on. Destroyers had double mount of 5-inch guns, 5-inch 38. So DE only had one single one on there. Then they had some 50 calibers and some 20mm anti-aircraft guns. I think it may have been 2 or 3 mounts. 3 mounts, I believe. I truthfully don't remember.
Okay. Okay. How many people would have served on a destroyer escort?
Now you stuck me again, because I expected it must have been close to 100 of them. It's a reasonable sized ship. Bounced pretty bad in the water. The kind of stuff you get in a storm with one, you wish you wanted a bigger one. But I was in PG squadron there for a little while when it was assigned to DE outfit, and then they decommissioned it and sold it to Russia. I was in New Orleans when it was in that outfit. Had a lot of fun down there. We had a little old 8-foot wherry there in the outfit I was with. There was about 7 or 8 of us in the crew in that bunch. We'll get out one Saturday. A guy named Ernie Poole and Johnny Lynch. Lynch was from up New York and Poole was from down in Kentucky. We got out, was fiddling around Lake Pontchartrain one day at that thing, paddling, and had a little sail rigged up on it. It was 8 feet long with 3 guys in it, you know. The guy in the middle was a bad wind. I happened to be in the middle. And every time you want to change direction, you're going to swing the boom on that sail. You got to get down so the sail goes. Got caught in a storm. And we had one heck of a time of getting that back in, but we made it back in. And we had a big personnel boat, and there was sailboats just upset all over that lake. We had a big personnel boat, and we just got some heaving lines and a couple other lines and fired up that old power outfit we had, and drew right back in, up right in ships, sailboats all over the place. Had a lot of fun doing that there.
Okay. Sounds like it'd be fun.
It would be. It is fun.
Yeah.
You're young. You don't care. Nothing's. You're invincible when you're that age. You should know that.
Yep. All right. You're talking about when you're going to the Philippines at the they caught a submarine. They were launching hedgehogs at it. Can you go into what a hedgehog is?
A hedgehog. Destroyer escorts had right in front of the superstructure, they had a little, looked like a plate, must have been close to 6 feet square. And had a bunch of pins sticking out. On those pins, you said a hedgehog is an outfit about yay big around, and a charge maybe this long on it. And they had a little detonator with a kind of looked like a cup sitting upside down on the nose. And there was a detonator in that, and your main charger's in it. Oh, these just slid, and they had a kind of a long pipe, about yay long, down, and you had an outfit on there, and fins in it, and the fins were turned so that they would make them spin when they fired. Well, you said there was 24 of them in there, and you set them on there, and anytime they fired them, they all fired at once, but these pins were calibrated to where each one, when they fell in a circle. And they go out there and fire that blooming thing. All of a sudden, here they form a circle, come right down. And then, of course, you're covering an area probably 100 feet wide or so. And if there's a sub in there anywhere, or anything else down underneath that water, when that little cup hits that thing, it explodes, and it sets it off, and that charge explodes. You've got a good chance on a submarine to hit it. If you hit it at all, you can hit 2 or 3 of those things to hit it. And that's enough to do enough damage to make him surface. And if he surfaces, then you blast him with your guns. It's a kind of one of those things you learn, you take it for granted, you don't think anything about it. But that's the way it worked. So went through torpedo school and learned about all that kind of stuff in torpedo school, but understood a little more about it than the average sailor would probably. But it wasn't a bad job at all. A little skittish, you know, you get a sub alert, a sub alert out in the spot where you can't do anything about it and you can't see any land. That gives you a little skittish feeling for a little bit. But right. you don't hear any booms, you know, you got it made.
That's a good thing. Okay, so was the Hedgehog pretty effective against submarines? I mean, as a whole. I mean,
Pardon?
The Hedgehog, it was pretty effective against submarines then.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. See, a sub, of course, that stuff changes all the time. When I got back from the Navy, they were just developing this Nautilus. Just long times, go down and stay down. It used to be old subs wouldn't do that, but these new atomic subs, they call them, are they just done things. They take them down and go underneath icebergs, and they go around the North Pole. They can go right around that from a thing underneath the ice. Start out in one ocean, come up in another. The old subs couldn't do that. The old subs could only go about around 200 feet deep, and the pressure would collapse if it got much over. If you got down, we had subs times during the war, they'd get down and lay on the bottom and shut their engines all off. They could stay there a certain amount of time that way. But finally they'd have to come up, they couldn't stay there, but they could get on there, maybe stay for a couple, 3 hours. Anybody hunting for them, they got everything quieted down, all functions on the ship stopped. It's hard for radar to pick that up. They've got radars now, I guess, to pick them up, but back then they didn't. But I had my teeth fixed when I was in boot camp for service school, rather. Supposed to have my orders written, prepare teeth for submarine duty. And I thought maybe I'm going to make it on one of them little scutters. And I'll tell you, the ones they had then, I'm just glad I didn't. we go through them Great Lakes. We was torpedo school, and they had new ones were built in. I think it might have been Manitowoc, Wisconsin, or Green Bay, somewhere up in there. And they would come through the Great Lakes and stop there at Great Lakes. And the guys to go through them, they just used to let you go through them. They take the whole school unit. Well, it was in torpedo school. You go out and you can go through the thing. All you had to do to go through it was pick up a box of supplies when they were loading the thing. Pick up a box of supplies and you went in the darn thing. Carried that box of supplies where a guy wanted to sit down. You were up there, you went on through it, and come out. You were done. You see. But I'll tell you, there wasn't much room in there. Wasn't much room in it, and those were the small subs too that were building up there. They weren't the bigger subs. It wasn't the biggest subs we've had. They were kind of small. And at that, of course, I went in the Navy. I was a little guy. I was only 5'8.5" and weighed 128.5 pounds. 6 months later, I was 6 feet tall, weighed 165. I grew after when life eased up on me. I had more time to grow. It was just about like a picnic for me compared to the average guy. But we worked hard and worked daylight to dark every day home on the farm. And my dad was a pretty tough taskmaster anyway. And hadn't been for World War II, I'd probably been a farmer all my life. But I'm still about halfway farmer. I think I still work with about a couple of neighbors up there. All that kind of thing. In fact, we just finished stripping the crop tobacco last Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Still work at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's good work. Okay, so when you were in the Philippines on Mindanao, you were on, you're on shore duty. Did life change from that being on a ship?
Pardon?
Life was different on shore than it was on ship, right? I mean, was there a whole lot of difference?
Oh, there was tremendous difference. Tremendous. You couldn't believe, even now, of course, people don't realize the poor people in this country have got it made compared to the poor people, the average working people in all these foreign countries. Like, you got to, tell you a book to read. Under that boy down here at the, I think his name. Newman's his name, Stephen Newman's his name. He's down here around, did marry, just back over here in Brown County, I think is where he lived in. But he wrote, World Walk is the name of the book. And he walked around the world in 4 years. And it's an account of this trip. And he made the same remark about the poor people. The American people don't realize what it is to be poor. They think you're poor here, they haven't seen poor. He walked to the East Coast, caught a flight to England, went to the northern part of Ireland, and walked back down through, caught a ferry over to the coast of France, went down through Spain all that over into northern part of Africa, and back across into Italy and over and down through Asia and all that stuff. Had a little problem a time or two, but and he caught a ship to Australia, and he walked from the northern part of Australia to the southern part. And that's some barren land. That is some tough going.
Yep.
The poor people live in some of these areas, you couldn't believe it. You have to see it to believe it. It's the only way you'd ever believe it.
Uh-huh.
I can believe it for the simple reason I've seen some of the same thing in the Philippine Islands.
Uh-huh.
Those poor people over there, it's terrible what they have. They have no platform section, no thatched huts and stuff like that on stilts. Pretty tough.
What was the biggest difference for you going from ship to shore on duty?
I'm sorry, my hearing's so bad. I don't have understanding.
What was the biggest difference for you going from being on a ship to being on shore?
Well, really wasn't a whole lot of difference. You have to get your sea legs back when you get on land. Or you get up, you don't walk straight for a while. It takes a little while to adapt, a few minutes to adapt to it, maybe an hour, close to it. But you said sway of a ship. Oh, I saw one thing down there that you would never believe. Middle of the night, a guy named Palmer, Carl Palmer, torpedoed third class, same as I was. We were sitting up one night on a ship, middle of the night, nothing to do, and we sat up there, and the moon was shining, and all of a sudden the sea began to get real calm, and there for a period of maybe 3 or 4 minutes, it looked like a sheet of glass. One time in my life I ever saw that, and a lot of people I've been to sea have never seen that. And it only lasted a little bit, and then pretty soon you see little ripples start in. And that's quite a sight. That moon is shining down, and it looked like that moon's 2 miles down in that water. And it's just as flat as that tabletop and not moving a bit. And it lasted that way maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And we just happened to be sitting up and saw it. And I often thought, now if that isn't something, to think that much water, did nothing stir it anywhere, and no wind anywhere closer, it would never got that quiet. Because the wind makes that water move. It's really quite a sight. Looked like a sheet of glass. That's really, that kind of thing impresses you when you see it. Because I've always been a very smart of an outdoorsman, and I enjoy things like that maybe more than some people would. that means something to me. It's just like we was talking to some guys a while ago. It's sitting on the hillside way back in the woods somewhere and nothing around. It's dark when you go in there, and the first thing you know, it starts getting a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter, and the first thing you can see, you begin to see the trees, and if there's any grouse around the spring or the other, you can hear them drumming. And the first thing you know, it's broad daylight. And it just seems like it just sneaks up on you like nobody's business. I spent many a day before daybreak catch me way off on a hillside somewhere. You have to watch when you're walking, going in the woods that way, going in that time of day. Gotta be very careful. You go pretty slow, but it makes it worthwhile.
Okay. What was the everyday life like on your boat when you're on the destroyer escort? What was your the life? You know, what was your routine?
Didn't have much. Most of the time on your ship, I was just passenger. And some outfits you'd have maybe certain divisions. Guys maybe in it, like I was an ordnance division, big torpedoman. Maybe gunners in the ordnance and the torpedoman and the fire controlman are all right arm rates at that time. I think there was no left arm anymore, I think, but they might call so many of them, take them out, might put on a little work details. You might have a little work detail for 2 or 3 hours. But it's just something you got to keep the guys busy. That's a big part of it. Got real close to getting seasick one morning. Had a guy got seasick and was eating a bowl of oatmeal, and I had a bowl of oatmeal and a cup of coffee and a half a grapefruit was your breakfast. And we had to stand up to eat, and the old sea was giving her this. And this son of a gun next to me got seasick. He right in his dining room tray, and boy, oh boy, I almost got seasick that trip. I didn't quite make it, but I just left my tray and everything and grabbed that half a grapefruit, and up the ladder I went and get up on deck, get out in the air. I was all right there. Because they'd like to get a hold of me and grab it for dumping that tray, I expect. But I didn't dump the tray, I just left it set and let it go wherever I wanted. I'm not supposed to do that, but different things, you know, create necessity.
Yeah. During World War II, they had a lot of problems with the torpedoes, especially the submarine service did. Did you hear about that? Did you experience any of those?
No.
No?
No, thank goodness. It gets tough when that stuff starts happening. I was very fortunate, never really got into any action, and it didn't make me a bit mad. I felt sorry for the guys I went through boot camp with. There were 140 of us, and they tell me that 50-some of them killed in World War II. That's a pretty good whackout.
Yeah, that's a pretty high rate.
That's better than a third of the guys.
Yeah.
I don't know that for a fact, but I know a lot of guys that didn't come back that have been pretty good friends of mine. And there's been some of them I've wondered about if they came back. I don't know.
Huh.
Like his jury was talking about one landing out, he bumped my skid money little fat butt across the deck. I don't know if he made it back, and I don't have any idea. But the guy named Rat down here at Lebanon, see, he just died a couple of months ago. I'd been threatening to hunt him up sometime. I'd seen something about him in the paper once here a few years ago and just never did look him up. But he and I, in boot camp, we did one thing in exercise program. We had exercise programs every day. We had in our they had great big long field houses, had concrete floors in them, and they were fixed up for drill halls, not field houses. In case it was raining, they could put you in there and do stuff. Anyway, they had that one thing in our exercise program on doing your shawl. Some of your exercise, some of the different things that one particular event they call it. And anyway, I can't think of the name, but you climb over stuff and crawl under stuff. I'll tell you what I mean. But they had ropes. And went up about, must have been 20, 22 feet high, anchored. Then over here about 50 feet, on the neck, another boom, they had a rope, just where you went up on one rope, sagged like this, and went over to the next one. And you didn't have to do that. And you can do it voluntarily if you wanted to, but Mel Rapp down in Lebanon, I was the only two guys in that boot company that ever did that particular thing. And I'll tell you something, you had nothing out of you in concrete. So you better be sure you can do that before you go in there.
Okay. Is there anything else that sticks out in your mind that you want to talk about?
Pardon?
Anything else that you want to talk about that sticks out?
I don't really think it's necessary.
Okay.
Anything I can answer you for, or halfway answer it for you, I'd be glad to try it.
Actually, we're getting towards the end here. Is there anything that you learned by your service during World War II in the Navy that you want to pass on? Any life lessons?
Like I said, I was outdoorsman. I'd done about everything. By the time I went service up, I've always hunted all my life. So outdoors is something. I started hunting with my dad when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Weeds would hire my head, and I've hunted ever since. I just buried a good friend 2 weeks ago last Saturday. Yeah, 2 weeks ago last Saturday. And we hunted together 51 years. Probably walked 25 or 30,000 miles side by side because we used to hunt, and we hunt every Saturday all winter. We're strictly outdoors people. He'd come up in the hills of Kentucky, and my heritage is in the southern part of Ohio, down that big hill country down there. And I walked those hills. In fact, I'm going to be back there Sunday evening, and next week all week be chasing them white-tailed deer around. So that's the way, basically, is the most important thing to me in my life is about outdoors time. I love to get out and walk, and for a man 78 years old, I can walk for the best of them yet. Some of it gets a little tough, not as easy as it was. Get a little more tired than it used to. 10 years ago, I could still run to top one of those hills, but that was 10 years ago. Of course, you know, a lot of those hills down there, you're in country down there we're traveling, the elevation run from 750 maybe to 1,200, 1,250 feet. Once in a while, hit 1,300 foot high sea level hill, and that's some of this pretty good climb.
Yeah. So, all right. Unless you have anything to add.
Pardon?
Unless you have anything more to add.
I don't have a blooming thing.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
And that'll conclude this.
Good enough.
All right.